a lot of times we're often the first point of contact when there's a problem. We don't allow past due. There's no past dues allowed. It's great that you hit your year-end numbers, but if that goes south, the next month, then that's no good.
Welcome to Heroes of AI, powered by Growfin, a thought leadership series that spotlights the unsung champions and their transformational contributions in solving some of the biggest problems in the accounts receivable space. I'm your host, Pradyut Hande, and in this episode, we feature Thomas Conforti, noted order-to-cash guru who handles credit and collections management at Roehm, a leading global chemical manufacturing company. Welcome to another episode of Heroes of AR, powered by Growfin. I'm your host, Pradyut Hande, Associate Director of Product Marketing at Growfin, and today we are joined by yet another giant in the industry. I have none other than Tom Conforti with me today, who has vast experience in trade credit and accounts receivable with a significant emphasis in the chemical industry. Now, he's been employed with Roehm America LLC since 2020, and prior to that, he was with Ashland International Specialty Products for over 12 years. Mind you, 5 of which was as the CSR lead, which greatly enhanced his order to cash and supply chain knowledge. Now, he's been through several SAP implementations over the years, and he serves as a subject matter expert and a power user. Tom began his professional career with PNC Bank, formerly known as Midlantic, completing their commercial credit training program, and also holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration degree in finance from the University of Notre Dame. Welcome to the show, Tom. Really excited to have you as a guest here, and so much to look forward to just in terms of the insights that we'll unpack.
Well, thank you so much for the invite. I'm really glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom, for making the time. And without further ado, let's get started with the conversation at large, because I'm really excited to unpack a bunch of industry-specific insights that we can definitely sink our teeth into. So,
Sure.
In your introduction, Tom, I mentioned that you work at Roehm, and which happens to be a leading manufacturer in the methacrylate business. Now, when it comes to this particular chemical industry, what, according to you, makes credit risk in this value chain structurally different from other B2B industries?
We are a commodity chemical manufacturer as opposed to specialty, meaning like pharmaceutical. So that has a bit of a different dynamic. Pricing can go up and down. That's just kind of how it works with the customers. It can vary from month to month, as opposed to contractual pricing. We don't have a lot of, let's say, blanket order POs. A pricing could be locked in for a while, but again, can vary considerably from month to month depending on how the market is. So that can create a dynamic, a little bit more so on the customer service and sales side than for credit. But we have to be cognizant of that, because it can affect if pricing is not updated for the customers, getting payment if they have blocked invoices. It's not, we don't have a lot of issues with real disputed items from pricing. It's more a matter of what the left doesn't know what the right is doing. The buyer and the sales have agreed on the price for the next month. Fine, great. Perhaps in the accounts payable department doesn't show that updated. They have to have the buyer approve that. Those are the kinds of dynamics that we see.
Got it. So I think it's fair to say that there's a significant fluctuation and volatility when it comes to just pricing here. And that has a trickle-down effect on how invoices are generated, how customers react to contract prices, so on and so forth, right? And that brings me to my next question, Tom, which is, given the complexity and the unique challenges in the pricing itself, which sees a fair degree of fluctuation and volatility, as we established already. What, according to you and in your experience, have you seen to be some of the most common AR-related breakdowns? And how do you design contract terms to prevent against some of these?
Well, luckily, we're all on the same team at this company. I am very pleased and grateful that we have a fantastic sales team.
Mhm.
Everybody is on on the same page. So in turn, as far as the payment terms, that usually doesn't come into play. Certainly, there's going to be customers from time to time who are unilaterally going to say, "Hey, we're going to net 60 from net 30," and
Right.
that those kind of get addressed pretty quickly. Luckily, like I said, we've got a great sales team. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tied into the pricing dynamic, especially not so much on the larger customers, not so much on the smaller customers.
Mm-hmm.
On the mid-range customers, I'll say in terms of dollar volume, if there's ever issues where problems with the customer, they're going to change their terms, they're going to pay slow. Our sales team is very reactive to that.
Okay.
In a lot of those instances, they've gone to bat for their customer, let's say for pricing
Mm-hmm.
considerations or allocation. Our plants run 24/7. We can't, well, I'll get to our new plant perhaps a little later in the conversation, but
Sure.
uh, we're fortunate that our plants run 24/7. So when a sales when one of our sales reps has gone to bat for an account for, to get them extra product, to get them a good price, they really don't like it when if the customer would to start play games. It's few and far between, but
Right.
those situations get addressed very quickly. Makes my job a lot easier too.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. And given the fact that you clearly outlined how the sales team at Roehm operates, or specifically in this industry as well, uh, being really plugged in to the fact that pricing fluctuations are part of contract terms as well, that also puts the onus on a lot of intra-team collaboration too, right? You can't have this data or this information sitting in silos, which means that your sales folks need to constantly be having conversations with the finance team, be closely aligned with the customer success teams, so on and so forth. How do you see this shape up in Rome specifically, and in your experience as well?
Well, we have very good collaboration among finance, customer service, and sales. We're constantly communicating with each other, outside of just order releases or the standard things that you normally think of with credit and AR.
Right.
We're very we're on top of things. We monitor things very closely. We actually globally, there's a report that we do, myself, counterparts around the world, with the global top 10, let's say, past due accounts, and
Okay.
we report on this weekly. They are very on top of it. So any major issues are going to be very visible. We'll get asked questions. Sales may get asked questions as far as what's going on. So it's a daily process. We don't really even have to think about the collaboration. It's just part of how we operate.
Got it. Makes sense. And Tom, actually, the reason why I asked you that question is because in many of our conversations with industry folks, with business enterprises, the larger you become, the more complexity gets embedded in internal operations as well. And, even at Growfin, in some of the more advanced conversations we've had, we've seen that, you know, uh, the information sitting in silos actually causes AR teams to be almost fighting a lost battle in the dark in many ways, right? Because they are constantly having to chase sales for further information, or they're having to follow up with the customers to make sure whether they have the contract terms right, so on and so forth, right? So which is why internal collaboration tools like Slack and Salesforce also probably help in larger enterprises where all teams need to be on the same page. So fantastic point there. Thank you so much for sharing that. um, that actually brings me to my next question. Of course, you can have the most robust systems in place, the best practices in terms of AR strategy and collections management in place, but I'm sure that you've also encountered payment delays. This is just part and parcel of any business enterprise that we operate in, right? And so according to you, what is the fastest or shortest path that you may have adopted in order to resolve some of these payment delays or disputes without actually damaging customer relationships?
Uh, yeah, absolutely. The first thing is if something is blocked,
Hmm.
we go right, or I go right to customer service and or sales, depending. Um, Sometimes we don't know the reason of a block, and that's
Right.
you're dealing with third party or offshore or outsourced accounts payable departments. They might show something as a price when in fact it's a quantity. One is a function of the other, of course. So we just try to find out, is there something, is this a return material? Is there a problem with the pricing? Was there some more other issue? Because generally with the larger companies, you're not getting a direct contact. It's going to a group email box, and the accounts payable department might respond to you quickly that something's blocked, but they may not have the specific reason. So what we do first is we'll find out with sales and customer service, was there an issue with this shipment, what have you, and then we'll proceed from there.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. And in your experience, like, of course, you've been with Roehm since 2020, but you were with Ashland International before that as well. Um, how have you seen AR as a function be in a position to actually strengthen or bolster customer relationships? Because in many ways, very often, it is the final touch point when it comes to dealing with customers, right? In many ways, right? And you're getting customers to part with hard earned money. It's one of the most difficult things to do. So how have you seen AR actually be a lever in terms of bolstering customer relationships?
Well, there's a few things. First of all, you said it's the end point or the final touch.
Fun part. Yeah.
Ironically, there's a lot of instances, and I'm sure a lot of people in AR and credit
Mhm.
would agree. A lot of times, we're often the first point of contact when there's a
Right.
problem, and
Right.
that doesn't, that doesn't mean that customer service or sales is not responding to somebody. That just means, AAP or whomever is going to call us first when they first notice something.
Mhm.
So that's a terrific opportunity to build a relationship. Somebody's going to email you or call you, pick up the phone, email them back. Don't wait a business day. Forward. When you reply, copy all the right people. If it's somebody that you haven't had any communication with, just common courtesy. Oh, very nice to meet you. Thank you for your email. I'm
Mhm.
happy to help. I'm your contact here at Roehm. Whatever it might be. So a lot of times those situations can really help a relation, knowing that they can get a response out of people. No, when there's problems. 'Cause like I said, a lot of our business is not hard and fast. Second thing that's near and dear to my heart, as far as how
Mhm.
credit can help a relationship, is
Mhm.
um, I've noticed over the course of time that it's necessary to contact the purchasing. Years ago, it was always drilled in, purchasing deals with sales, credit deals with finance, and there's no mixing of the two unless there's a very serious situation. That's kind of evolved and changed quite a bit. So we can contact buyers directly when there's issues. When we have that contact, and it's not a confrontational situation for our industry, or I should
Mhm.
say for me, because we'll say, "Hey, accounting is saying this block. Do you need anything from us? Is this, how can we help on this?" It's, we're not emailing purchasing saying, "Hey, this is blocked. Set it up for payment." In the
Right.
past, years ago, buyers, because that's the kind of calls that they would get. "Hey, you're blocking a payment. What's going on?" And so on and so forth. So by nature, like our industry and our business, it's, again, like you mentioned, collaboration. We have to find out what's going on. So that when you can establish a good relationship with purchasing,
Mhm.
and again, they know that it's a professional relationship. They understand that they've got somebody else they can talk to. One of the successes I've had with purchasing is getting buyers on invoice, to receive invoices originally along with AP. Most ERP systems, mine is SAP, but I imagine Oracle and
Mhm.
other systems work the same, have the capability to send multiple, or to have multiple email addresses sent
Right.
for receiving original invoices. And the nice thing about that is, you don't need, not everybody's going to agree to that. No one wants a lot of emails, unnecessary attachments, but
Right.
my experience has been, it's going to be the larger customers that are going to agree to that. And you don't need a lot of those to make a big difference in your payments. So that means that, again, these, let's say, monthly pricing discrepancies, accounting is going to see something blocked and purchasing is going to see it at the same time. And boom, it's going to resolve that much quicker. So,
Right.
now when I've contacted buyers in the past that way, again, it's a relationship building tool as well. So that's where credit can really, as you said, leverage building a relationship, just as an example.
Awesome. Love the granular detail that you went into with that response. Truly
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I could tend to be a little bit long-winded, and it is something
Oh,
because I have,
we totally
yeah.
welcome that. We totally welcome that.
Okay, great. Yeah, because it is that particular issue is kind of near and dear to my heart. And like I said, I'll be thinking about that specifically at this credit symposium in April. So I could go on for a long time about that topic.
We probably have to like schedule another episode to do just that, right? I'm sure we can find the time to do that. But appreciate it. Two great points that came through there. Number one being the fact that just a corollary to the fact that yeah, AR teams can very often be the first touch point. Even like when things really hit the roof, when things go southwards. So that was one. The second one was the involvement of the purchasing team here. I don't know a lot of manufacturing companies or even companies who would openly talk about that so candidly. So amazing points shared there, Tom. Really appreciate that. That actually brings me to my next question. Now, given the fact that you set in place such robust systems, you're working on SAP as an ERP, you're essentially managing an over $40 million portfolio. We did our due diligence, by the way. We did our research and we've come with questions prepared accordingly. But you've managed to keep your past dues under 5.5% consistently. And this is probably something that clearly does not happen by accident. So, is there a specific playbook that Tom Conforti and his team are adopting to make this magic happen?
Well, the first thing is it's part of our job requirement and our goals. That's that is the mantra. When we started, when it was carved out of Evonik, Roehm America was originally part of Evonik. We're owned by private equity, Advent International, but that was the mantra that was given to credit, that we don't allow past due. There's no past dues allowed.
Right.
So there we got, as I mentioned before, we've got a great sales team here. Everybody is on the same page. We don't, we're lucky we don't have any real you know we don't butt heads that often, if at all, over things like this. So everybody's on the same page. Um,
Right.
as far as a playbook is, again, I was mentioning, uh, globally, we do our portion of it. Every week, our senior management in Germany is looking at the top 10 past dues globally by each division. And those are the major dollar ones. So we're on top of that. Now, how do we go about monitoring that, what have you? And this is something that I'm sure SAP is capable. Well, SAP is capable of this. I'm sure Oracle, any ERP system. Very simple but very effective. You can run an ATB as of a future date and see what's coming due. Good old days, you just run your monthly statement. You'd kind of like, okay, this is coming up. You'd have to, manually kind of, I don't know, put reminders or post-its or what have you. But the nice thing is, I mean, we could run an ATB every day if we wanted to after cash application. So with that, we're usually running ourselves, myself, my counterpart, weekly ATBs. We're seeing what's coming due. Now, obviously, if there's accounts that we're concerned about with, or say, hey, we got a lot coming due on Friday, let's get in touch with them. We're able to do that. We can do that as of month end, and so we stay on top of it that way. The other thing is, for month end, quarter end, year end specifically, and then this is with the collaboration with the sales team. Uh, for lack of a better term, I say we tend to call in favors with accounts, um, which means that we're very fortunate. We got a lot of good customers, people that pay right on terms, but it's very rare that you're getting a payment right on the due date. Some people do that. So when those month end comes in, or when the month end, if the month ends on the weekend, we'll kind of ask, either we'll reach out directly, we'll ask for the salesperson, hey, do you think you can, make sure they can do a same day payment on that last Friday, or even pay an invoice a day early? And again, though those kinds of things are always going to be with your big dollar accounts, and course, not everybody's going to be, and not because they don't want to. There, there's going to be system considerations. They may be, they may not be able to do it, but
Right.
with the large dollar volume items, you don't need a lot of those things to make a lot of difference in your DSO and your, well, mostly your snapshot past due, not so much DSO. But yeah, so those kinds of things are very helpful. And it's just a matter of using use the tools that you have available to keep a watch on things.
Mhm. Fantastic, fantastic. And you make it sound far more easy and simplistic than it actually is. But I know what you mean.
Conceptually, it's easy. The practice is a little bit more difficult.
Absolutely, absolutely. And honestly, when it comes to accounts receivable, it is actually one of those finance functions where you have such little locus of control, right? You barely have control over things
Well,
that
ultimately, that's true. I mean, you can't force an account
yeah.
to make a payment. We're not going to the bank ourselves and initiating the ACH, the wire, or even some people who still write checks. That's very
Yes.
true.
Awesome. And that's a great segue, by the way, into my favorite question. And this is something that we ask a bunch of folks because this is the domain, this is our bread and butter, accounts receivable automation.
I'm sorry. I ruined your segue. I realized what I know.
Okay.
I just want to add this topic to the
Sure. Go
list.
ahead.
As far
Go
as
ahead.
I, how could I forget? Um, Industry trade credit associations are a fantastic way of helping you monitor.
Hmm.
You talk to people, you email them, you ask for references, and
Right.
Roehm happens to be a member of a great trade organization, the National Credit and Chemical Associations, under the company's CADEX, and
Okay.
you've got direct contacts. It's not like a D&B report where you see
Hmm.
you don't know who the company is. We've got the company names, we've got direct contacts, so that also helps if you can monitor these things and run a report on somebody. Are they paying somebody a little bit slower? That's kind of how you can also be proactive.
Awesome. So that is a great segue for me to actually bring up my favorite question of this particular conversation, this arc, because this is our daily bread and butter. We operate in the AI native accounts receivable automation space here at Growfin. And I'm sure you've seen the evolution of how AR teams have adopted technology. And when I say technology, it's taken different hues and forms over the last 10 to 12 years, whether it's in the form of automating a lot of manual busy work, or whether it is moving away from spreadsheets to some extent, whether it is predictive scoring and account health, dynamic health scores for your customer accounts with agentic AI in the picture as well. So how do you see all of this coming together to essentially elevate both credit and collections decisions for AR leaders?
Well, as far as the technology, I mean, there's a lot of different things. For manufacturing,
Hmm.
uh, I mean, certainly AI is going to creep into, maybe not creep in is the right word. You're going to see AI coming into
Right.
financial and credit and what have you in manufacturing environments. It's not going to, they're not going to not do that. Um, I think AI solutions might be more applicable to retail,
Hmm.
CP, consumer packaged goods industries that have a lot of high volume, software as a
Hmm.
service, even what have you, to automate that as kind of the next generation, if you will, of Dunning, or people who are familiar
Right.
with get paid software, which
Yeah.
was I get paid many years ago in a different environment. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. Um, the only disadvantage of that being that it was always a day behind because it had to wait till your cash was up done. But for high volume, that's perfect.
Hmm.
You need to shoot out a for your, you can customize that anyway, and shoot out a blast to your 100
Yeah.
past due customers that are small dollars, what have you. So I see for those kinds of industries or companies, I would see AI kind of being the next step in the evolution of those bolt-on packages, if you will. Um,
Hmm.
and like I said, at some point, it's not going to. I'm not going to say it's not going to touch manufacturing credit. It will. We're seeing it on our side already with no touch OTC, which
Okay.
basically essentially means that customer is going to send over their PO. email, whatever, and the system is going to, as long as everything matches, their order is going to get entered into the system. We've implemented that now in one of our divisions. I'm not quite sure what kind of hit rate they've had yet. It's all at the very beginning. That's where in my company and manufacturing, I think you're going to see it more, or certainly just initially.
Got it. Got it. Was this scenario slightly different when it came to your previous company, just in terms of adoption of automation and technology in general to essentially make the lives of AR teams slightly simpler?
Well, at my prior company, the AI really hadn't become a factor yet. I'm not sure where they're at with that now. Um, they probably, they were again using, there was a few. I didn't handle that particular segment, but there
Sure.
were, EDI orders, what have you. Um, there was a lot of accounts that used Ariba, those kinds of, you know vendor portals, packages, what have you. So I didn't really see that
Mhm.
there. They were very good. They had a great process as far as structuring with group email boxes and what have you. That their processes worked very, very well. But AI hadn't come into the equation
Got
yet
it.
at that point.
Got it. Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So while we sort of like zoomed in a little bit and focused on, like the technology landscape and how that's impacting the lives of AR teams, I want to take another lens here and make it very super relevant to the time of season, the time of year that we find ourselves in, which is essentially like audit season right around the corner, right? And this is something that keeps coming up in conversations that we have with industry leaders as well. From your perspective, Tom, I want to understand what becomes, super critical during this period to ensure that AR teams are actually proactively prepared and they don't fall into the trap of succumbing to last minute pressure during audit season, because business has to continue as usual, right? You can't put a pause on that. So what are some of those challenges and how can they be alleviated by AR teams during this season?
Well, fortunately, I don't have too many problems that area, being that we're privately held. We're not um, having to worry about
Mhm.
socks or those kinds of things.
So
However, we do have policies, we do have internal and external orders, of course. Um, the biggest thing procedurally is our
right.
internal audit will look to make sure we're following our set credit policy. Our which is generally, are we stopping shipments when we need to? Are we escalating matters, in the right time and to the right people? And that's usually done by just, documenting the emails were sent. They'll take a sample of accounts. They notice that XYZ company was 100,000 past due at last month. Then what happened? Who'd you tell? What was the story behind it? So they do look at those things, very, very carefully. Like I said, we've got a lot of reports. We really stay on top of things, but nonetheless, they need to, of course, the numbers. You have 5% past due, and that's fantastic. We're happy about it. A lot of companies would be happy, but you still have some past dues.
Right.
Did the accounts that went past due, what did we do about it? So they want to make sure that, we've got a good track record. We want to continue with that. So that's kind of the role, I think, here for my current situation. What internal audit would do. Internal external audit will generally, of course, for they'll take a sample of invoices. They'll want the copy of the invoice, and generally the proof of delivery, which our logistics team handles. So that's more of just gathering the documentation they need in a timely fashion. Did you deliver it? Um, Sometimes there's questions that come up. We ship a lot of rail cars, as a lot of
Right.
chemical companies do. Rail cars logistically are a bit of a different animal, in terms of, you're not getting a signed proof of delivery
Right.
as you truckload shipment. So those kinds of things might take a little bit more explaining, but that's logistics. That's kind of their wheelhouse more so.
Got it. Fantastic. Fantastic. And that actually, Tom, brings us to our final question of this conversation, which, by the way, has blitzed by because I didn't even realize how quickly the time has passed because we were having such a wonderful time conversing and then unpacking a bunch of different insights. Um, I wanted to understand from you, having been in the industry for so long, across a couple of industries as well now, and you've seen how AR operations have evolved, and some aspects of them have remained probably stagnant or have remained fairly constant. Now, just putting your leadership hat on, if you could tell me what actually segregates an average credit and collections operational team versus a high performing one.
Um, just consistency. There's no secrets to this. Always, don't you can't rest on your laurels. At the risk of perhaps a bad cliche, or maybe somebody might find this amusing, it's like the song goes, "What have you done for me lately?" And
Right. You're only
that's
as good as what you did last month.
it's great that you hit your year end numbers, but
Right.
if that goes south, the next month, then that's no good. So taking nothing for granted. One of the things, and I had spoke to this, I think, in some comments
Mhm.
on online in the past. Um, if you have an account, or if I have an account where, let's say, you're noticing the sales
Mhm.
volume drop off. Now, in our
Right.
industry, commodity chemicals, you get these pricing differences. It's quite possible, that maybe our pricing's too high one month. Somebody's going to source the material elsewhere. Sure, that's going to happen, but we can't take that for granted, because if somebody's volume is dropping off, is it because they're struggling? So you have
Mm.
to keep dialogue with your sales and your customer service, more so sales, obviously, but you have to be cognizant of those situations. Um, we and I would recommend this for everybody.
Right.
Choose whether it's monthly, quarterly,
Mhm.
biweekly. Choose your interval, but have regular meetings actually with your sales teams. And it doesn't always have to be to discuss the problems.
Right.
Like I said, those mid-range kind of accounts are where you can make a lot of improvement. You've got somebody. Of course, you're focused on the high dollars. Of course, you're focused on the stuff that's real past due. But those mid-range accounts that maybe they're not disputing net 30 terms, but they only have one pay cycle a week. Can you get them to pay twice a week or whatever? They may not set you up as a daily pay vendor. Um, you have these conversations, pay attention. You say to your sales team, hey, XYZ company used to do 100,000 a month. Now they're down to 20. What's going on? Did somebody leave? Are they having
Right.
problems? Maybe they did go to another vendor. So it's just about, open dialogue.
Mhm.
Utilize, use the tools you have available. Like I said, you've got, most ERP systems, you can run those ATBs in anytime
Mhm.
you want. You can run them as of a future date. You have the tools that are available, and to, utilize your calendar reminders. I mean, that's
Right.
it's not, it's just being consistent and following up with that. Um, and then, and escalate when necessary. You can't, you can't email somebody four times and then not getting a response, and expect to resolve it.
Awesome. Awesome. Tom, so just to summarize, consistency across everything that you do on a daily basis, very tight alignment and collaboration between your customer service and sales teams, uh, and utilizing tools at your disposal to ensure that you don't have just a 360-degree view on what's happening on that particular day, but also equip yourself with the intelligence to be able to take future action based on accurate enough forecasts and the data available. Awesome, incredible conversation, Tom. This has been an absolute blast for me.
Me too.
Your level of preparation, the passion that you bring to the table, and it felt more like a conversation than an interview. So I'm going to put it out there. I definitely had a great time, and I'm sure our audience will benefit a lot from all the amazing insights and intel that you have shared. On behalf of Growfin and the Heroes of AR here, I want to extend a very warm thank you to you for being a part of this platform.
Thank you very much too. Enjoyed it very much.